What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Taking the Pin. And today we are discussing WWE once again, at a topic that is near and dear to one of these hosts' heart, and he's got no bones to share about it at all. It's the commercialization of wrestling and WWE in general over the past few years. Bragster, I'm not even going to say anymore. I'm just going to let you take it away at this point.
Oh, it's rubbish, isn't it? I'm gonna really struggle not to swear because it's actually annoying me. I pitched this idea to you purely because I'm angry, and I will be honest about that. I defended this shamefully. I defended this when this first started. I didn't mind the Prime logo in the middle of the ring. Didn't care. I didn't mind a few of the logos on the turnbuckles. Didn't care. What I did care about was when they started turning the LED screens into little rainbow, little colourful little things in the background that distracted from the match. That really started to annoy me, right? Funnily enough, I can't believe I'm saying this. Fair play to you, dude wipes. You're the only one that doesn't get on my nerves because it blends into the posts. It's black and white. It blends in. Make all of the advertisements black and white. I do not have a problem. The moment you start adding colours, it annoys me for obvious reasons. It's distracting. So that's number one. That's point number one of my annoyance. Point number two, and the thing that has caused this to happen, right, is the stupid Slim Jim bloody tables that appear on every bloody show. And then after every tables are a luxury. They're a luxury, right? They should get a table out and it should be, yay, we're getting tables because we don't usually get tables. If you get tables every week, tables lose their, shine. They lose it. We lost it with Hell in a Cell and that only appeared once a bloody year. And we're going to lose it with tables because tables are appearing on every show. Why? Because Slim Jim wants us to. Because then we can go, oh, crack, the Slim Jim table's gone again. Annoying.
I did notice that last night when I was watching it.
Precisely. You notice it. It takes you completely out of the moment. And something is such as going through a table should be a big moment. It shouldn't be about advertisements. It should just be a big moment. I didn't necessarily mind the fireball ladder until good old Santi Zapp, and I love Santi Zapp completely, and he raised a really good point, which was that from now on, every bloody year, we're going to know when the match ends. Because until that fireball ladder comes along, that match ain't ending. Because until that little lovely sponsorship logo is well in the sign of the view of the camera, nothing is going to happen. So therefore, it makes the rest of the match absolutely pointless. And that's, unfortunately, what I believe the future actually holds. And it's so frustrating, and it's been a thing that has been bubbling for so long. And honestly, the irony is the Slim Jim table has broken me. It's actually broken me. It's sent me over the edge. I don't know how to handle it. I honestly cannot. Please just speak so I can gain some energy back.
Okay, I mean, I don't really know where else to take it from here. Okay, he's abandoned ship. He's actually had enough and gone. Right, we've brought him back. He's back from the dead. Yeah, I mean, in terms of commercialization and obviously the running of ads or whatever, WWE has always, of course, used it to its maximum potential. What I didn't foresee, and maybe stupidly didn't foresee, ever since the TKO takeover, really, is just how much it was going to get racketed up. I get you're one of the biggest companies, entertainment companies in the world now, in terms of the scale, your popularity, what you bring in, how your operation runs, how many people you've got working for the company. I get there's a lot of element to it. Their money being brought in is a crucial component. I think we've gone a step too far now, where it's almost becoming more of a commercial show than it is a wrestling show in many aspects. And I think not necessarily the straw that broke the camel's back, but the moment where, and there's been a few things where I've kind of gone, oh, that's a bit different to what they normally do. Oh, they've done this. Okay, right, just move on from it. We can focus on the match now. But I do think that Money in the Bank match where not only did you have the Fireball ladder, but you also had the Cash App on the briefcase, 2 sponsorships in one shot, was just like, okay, I mean, fair enough, you need to make your money, I guess, but do we need that right now? Is that necessary? Like, wouldn't it have been much more effective if you had a ladder that was a Fireball ladder and it got just obliterated to smithereens from getting cracked in half from someone going on the top rope and smashing through a ladder or something like that? But again, I guess the continuous shot of Seth getting that briefcase for the next year is always going to have the Fireball and the Cash App on it, so that's probably where the money's being made. But yeah, that was kind of the moment where I was a bit like, okay, right. But then even if you look past the matches, if you look at like podcasts, if you look at Cody's podcast, it's literally sponsored by a vodka. Like, everything they do is now sponsored by something. And I get in the modern world where podcasts are sponsored by the same brand 50 times over, and you've got TV shows with a million adverts in between, that WWE and TKO are going to go the same way. There's going to be some element of it that goes that way. But when it starts getting involved in sort of the creative side of things, I think it's going to do more harm than good in the long run. Like, initially, people, the casual person will probably just go, oh, okay, it's in there, whatever, I'm not really paying attention to it. But then 6 months down the line, next year when we get to Mania, if there's more stuff like that, does it then become, oh, this is just an advert, essentially? Like, why do I need to watch this? And not just in the advertising. That's one whole lane you can talk about, like we have done for the past 8 minutes. Going to the ticket prices. The ticket prices are insane. Like, I get that wrestling is in, I would maybe argue it's not quite in the peak anymore. It may go back to a peak at some point, but I wouldn't say, I think WrestleMania 40 was the peak. I think that's where we were, and when everything congregated and everybody that I know knew it was coming, knew Mania was on that weekend, everyone was watching it, everyone was doing everything they can to pay attention to it. After that, because it was that culmination of that 4 or 5 year storyline, there was obviously going to be some form of dip. Mm-hmm. And it did dip a little bit, and it has dipped since. Mm-hmm. And I think Mania this year has continued that dip. Mm-hmm. What hasn't stopped is the continuation of price increases. I live in the northeast of England, and there's a house show that is on, I believe, at the end of August. I looked for tickets in the cheapest area possible, and on the day of sale of tickets, now it might have changed since then, because obviously as time goes on and seats don't get sold, they do lower the prices. But at the time, to be up in the rafters on a house show in Newcastle, it was £100 British. £100 for one seat. So if I wanted to take me and my wife, it would be £200 to go. Not including if I wanted to buy merch, not including if I wanted to do something beforehand, like go for a meal or have a drink or anything like that. You're talking potentially a night out costing close to £300. Mm-hmm. And that's not even taking into consideration Mania tickets. Mm-hmm. I saw a video where Randy Orton was signing some stuff for people, and he was asking how was the Mania and what were the tickets like in terms of price. And the fans said they'd spent £30,000 on a ticket to go to Mania for the weekend. Now, Mania is always going to be the most expensive thing. I 100% understand that. Mm-hmm. It's your biggest weekend of the year. You're going to charge more for that on that basis alone. But £30,000 for 2 nights is quite frankly ridiculous. To a normal consumer going in wanting to see wrestling, £30,000, £200 on a house show. And that's not even taking into consideration what it'll probably be like in London or all these places that do TV. It'll be even more. Now, I'm not saying it's affecting them right now, but there's only so long they can keep doing that and people continue to pay the prices. Because eventually, something will either happen in the real world of the economy, their money will diminish, or jobs will go, or there'll be some form of economic comeuppance that'll come and people won't be able to spend the money. And then TQ are going to go, well, what do we do now? We can't just suddenly reduce the prices. We're operating at a certain level. We have to keep everything there. And I get that advertising maybe bridges that gap a little bit. But when you link in the ticket prices and the advertising, it's a bitter pill to swallow, really. When you've got the likes of AEW who put on the All in Wembley shows and their prices were super, super competitive in terms of bringing people in and being able to put people in seats because of how cheap they were. You're going to Wembley Arena, a 90,000 person seat, and you could get tickets for £50, if not less. Especially higher up, obviously. I'm not saying ringside or anything like that. But, like, even myself, who's not a big AEW fan, considered going to that show because I was like, yes, they're probably coming back to London at some point, but it's a historic show. It's a cheap show. I could go for a reasonable price. Sure, the hotels probably aren't going to be that cheap, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm getting what I pay for, and I'm going to get a great show. Paying double the price to go to a house show in Newcastle is quite frankly ridiculous. Like,
no, it literally is, and you've got like in the same scenario. My friend who I go to a lot of events with, and my mate Kai, he is a huge WWE fan. Never been interested in AEW, but last year he came to Wembley and we watched it together. And did I spend half of my time explaining who some people were and like what the storylines are going into that show? Yeah, but it was the fact that we got to the casino battle royal and he was like, so what are the rules? And I explained the rules quickly. And he got so into it. You know, and he was like, yeah, this is amazing. This is so much fun. And we got really into it. The main event was obviously incredible. And, you know, as you said, like, ultimately wrestling is a coming together. I, as recently as this past weekend, was at Rev Pro Wrestling. I watched the Revolution Rumble. I was there for it. And you've got York Hall in London, completely, virtually sold out. You've got wrestling fans left, right, and centre, all there for the same reasons, all chanting, all cheering. You know, you've got wrestlers signing merch halfway through the shows. I know Rev Pro's not the only one. You know, you've got Progress, you've got Purpose, you've got North. Just to name a few, and I know I'm missing so many, and I apologize because I'm just irate and I can't think straight. But you've got so many, and that's just in the UK. That's not including all of the incredible different promotions that are across in America as well. And it's so annoying that it's such you know. AEW with All In, especially in London, because that's close to both of us, has shown that you can get so many wrestling fans together. And especially if you put them at a reasonable price. You know, I know people who got to ringside, not directly ringside, but close enough for just 1,000. And I say just 1,000 because of the prices that you would have had to pay to just be in the same spot.
Yeah.
No, actually, the price you would have had to have paid to be 3 blocks above where I've known people to pay 1,000 to be on the floor. You know, it's a matter of like, I know WWE's a bigger brand, but when you've got all of this commercialization, when you've got the fact that after every single premium live event, they go, this is the highest revenue. And a lot of fans are working out that what that means is you have paid over the odds more than anyone else has before. And people are starting to work that out. And the shameful part is that people are being priced out. There is cost of living crises across the world. There is obviously major conflicts going on and stuff like that across the world that are affecting people's economies, people's jobs, etc., etc. You've got AI getting involved and, you know, costing people jobs left, right, and center. And you've got people being priced out, and then all of a sudden you've got them making money, more and more and more and more money. That's then not including the wrestlers that they've released just this year. You know, again, because of cost cutting, as if they need to cut any more costs in that company. This is a company that makes billions and billions and billions per year. And I can tell you now, taking $1 billion off of that and making more fans happy and making the atmospheres better, I can fully tell you will be better. But it's just because of greed that it means that people are being priced out, that people are losing their passion for wrestling because they're not being able to see their favorite wrestlers. You know, I only went to my first independent wrestling show last year, not even a year ago. And I have loved wrestling. I've done wrestling content for nearly 5 years. And I went to my first one last year. A big reason for that, because I was a bit nervous too. Because with WWE, you know what you're getting. But with an independent show, you don't know what you're getting. You don't know everybody that turns up, you know, and you worry that the people there do. And I can tell you from going to them that is not the case. If you don't know who someone is and you don't know whether to cheer or boo, that's fine, because there are other people in that room that also don't know. But there are a lot of people out there that don't know that's the feeling that you get from independent shows. And it's just a shame that people, and you know, we're not even talking about the kids here, you know, the kids that are going to be priced out, and instead you've got more adults than kids in these arenas. And who are the people that, quite frankly, are the centerpiece of wrestling? It's kids. Like, at the end of the day, yes, we are 2 grown adults speaking about wrestling, but I can tell you now, I was a kid when I got into it, when I first got introduced to it, that then spurred on the passion that went forwards into what I do now, into what I talk about now. You know, it's the fact that I want to be able to, when I have kids, to be able to take them to these shows. Yeah. I'm not sure I can even do that. I want to, when WrestleMania eventually comes to London, which, touch wood, happens at some point, I want to go. And I've spoken to my mate and I'm like, how much would we have to save? And you go into the process of trying to save, and you don't even know.
That's the crazy thing, though. You're talking about going to WrestleMania in your own country, and you're talking about having to save a certain amount to be able just to go, which is just insane. But that point you made about obviously children watching and this, that, and the other, and not being able to go to shows or whatever. But it's the same thing as football, or soccer, as Americans will call it, of that we have over here, that the Premier League is getting too expensive and kids can't afford to go to football matches, and that's how you generate years and years of fan base and people watching and still going and doing all these things. And wrestling is having that same problem, is going to have that same problem, because little Timmy, or little Jimmy as R-Truth would call him, who would probably go with his dad, can't go anymore, and probably starts to watch something else. And yes, wrestling is in popularity, and it's got all these celebrities going to watch it, the Netflix shows, or, you know, you've got the Fanatics Fest that's happened recently. I guarantee in 5 years' time, if it keeps going the way it's going and it's not as popular and it does go on the downward spiral, the celebrities like Tom Brady coming out to Cody Rhodes entrance music and holding titles and doing all this stuff, that won't happen. Because they won't want to be associated with something that's not popular. And if it starts going on a downward spiral, what do TKO do then? Do they sell it? Do they just get rid? Do they maybe go back a couple of steps and say, right, let's just make this a bit more palatable for everybody?
Yeah.
I can't see them doing that, because even when UFC has had its lulls, they've not done it. They've just stuck to their guns and hope for the best. And the problem is, I'm never going to stop watching it, because it is so easy for me to watch it at home with Netflix and the deal that they've got. But there are signs that maybe ticket sales aren't going as strongly. I mean, there's been the NXT show that they've had to move. I can't remember if it's this week or relatively soon, where basically they were they had a 10,000 arena and they only sold like 1,500 or 2,000 tickets, and they've had to cancel and move the show. Like, NXT, all intents and purposes, NXT is a developmental show.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Like, yes, they advertise it as a third brand, but really, there isn't really much that happens with NXT between the two major brands other than people get promoted and go to a major brand once their time comes.
Yeah.
You might have the odd Royal Rumble interaction, you might have the odd Survivor Series thing. There's different things that they can do. But at the end of the day, NXT is the beauty of NXT, especially when Triple H took over it and made it the black and gold era, and really for the most part since, is that it's a few thousand people congregated in one place, yelling at the top of their lungs, and giving it that independent feel.
Yeah.
If we're getting to a point where NXT has to be a 10,000 person arena for a good chunk of weeks in the year, especially when they're doing PLEs or when they're doing special shows, I think we're getting to a point where we're going a little bit too far with it. And that's just one example. There's plenty of other examples as well where, I mean, I'll be interested to see what this weekend looks like when they've got the free shows on at the weekend, when they've got Evolution 2, Saturday night's main event, and the NXT show on the Sunday.
Yeah.
Because if they're all sold out and they're all 100%, I mean, they'll advertise it as being sold out. Of course they will. That's what they've always done. They did that for years in the Vince era. They did that left, right, and center. But that could be a big first sign of, is it on the wane when you have 3 big shows, well, relatively big shows, and you've got AEW All In on, I should say. So, like, you know, time will tell if it does make a difference in terms of how people start to perceive it. But you can have discussions about the product. You can talk about storylines not being great. You can talk about them being great. You can talk about left, right, and center. I personally don't think the shows have worsened particularly. I think they're still decent. I think they have good shows. The PLEs are really good. I still think they have that element of what Triple H had with the NXT shows. But the outside influence is clearly there for everyone to see. And I think eventually, if they don't rein it in a bit, I'm not saying you don't have to make money. It's WWE. They're going to be out there to make money. But when it's coming at the cost of the authenticity of the product and it's making it unbearable to watch at times because you need to have a Slim Jim table crack, or you need to have a fireball ladder, or you need to have 3 10,000 show arenas sold out over the space of 2 days because you've got 3 different shows on just to compete, although apparently they're not competition in AEW. Like, I mean, what are we doing? Like, it just seems mad at this point.
No, it does. And it feels mad that as a wrestling fan, I am sat here not talking about the product, not talking about, you know, the upcoming shows, not talking about, you know, storylines going on, predictions, theories, this, that, and the other. Instead, I'm sat here ranting because of the commercial element that has just gone too far. And this is for someone who I very much understand business. I get how it works. I get why they do it. I get why they're trying to make X amount of money, this, that, and the other. I get why they're doing the sponsorships on X, Y, and Z. I get it. But the moment that it is taking over to the point where you can start predicting what's going to happen because of sponsorships, you can start, you know, predicting, oh, okay, this week there's going to be a table spot. Oh, what segment is it going to be in? You know, the fact that as a fan, you are going, oh, I know there's going to be a table spot this week. That shouldn't be a given. Nothing should be a given. That should be a treat to a fan, you know, and that's the joy of it all. That's quite often why they maybe do it on the dark sort of matches, just to, you know, give the crowd something to celebrate, sort of thing, you know. And then you have it taking over entrances that then, you know, the poor wrestlers half the time, you can tell, just don't want to be doing it, and probably had much cooler and better ideas for what they wanted to do. And I feel like you're removing as you said, the authenticity, the creativity that wrestling naturally develops. And obviously it's not right now that is happening, but a year down the line of seeing a Slim Jim table broken every week, every single ladder match ends with the fireball ladder being the last one standing. If that just continues to happen, if those trends continue to happen on all these different weapons, this, that, and the other, you end up with like a giant Slim Jim, like kendo stick type thing, or
don't put that into existence, Bragster. That's definitely gonna happen.
Yeah, and you end up with like the lights out matches, the Mountain Dew lights out match that, you know, is a cool concept, but gets ruined by the fact that you can just see Mountain Dew logos everywhere. You know, it gets to a point where a year down the line, I can definitely see fans, as you said, the casual fans who maybe only come for the top 4 pay-per-views and maybe Money in the Bank on top, is if they start to notice these trends alongside the hardcore fans, you're going to naturally lose fans, because they'll just be like, well, what is this? What's this corporate stuff? Like, you know, what is this? This isn't the product I grew up loving.
Yeah.
You're not going to entice people back. Yeah. You're going to lose that. And it just, and I worry for that. And it's a shame. And the only thing I can hope is if you know, this trend does continue, that the likes of AEW, TNA, GCW, New Japan, all of the independent shows that I named earlier, increase in popularity, increase in ticket sales, and we start showing love elsewhere, and that it doesn't result in people losing interest in wrestling, because wrestling inherently is fun, and it's enjoyable, and it's great to talk about. And, you know, the more people you can introduce to wrestling, the better. You know, I've thoroughly enjoyed introducing my housemates to wrestling through my love going myself. And they've managed to find some sort of love in it, where, you know, they've gone to shows with me and they know nothing about wrestling, and they've ended up having really good nights out, because you get to have a few beers while sat with your friends watching some awesome stuff go on. You know, it's I hope that if it decreases on that end, that the other end increases. But the concern I have is that you will lose those casual fans and possibly lose them forever. And that is the worst thing for wrestling, over something that the company does not need to do, because it is not desperate for money. It already earns billions.
Yeah, 100%. 100% agree on that one. Yeah, quite well put there, Bragster. I don't really have anything else to add, so I think that's where we'll leave it. Yeah, guys, let us know what you think down in the comments. Would love to hear your thoughts on this one, because, of course, we've all seen it over the past few years, how it's developed, and I think it's something, obviously, we will all see develop in one way or another over the coming months and years. But, yes, let us know what you think down in the comments. And, of course, if you want to see more wrestling content, hit that subscribe button, and we'll be back for some more wrestling chat in a video in the very near future, and we shall see you there. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you soon.